In a political climate marked by silent wars and unsaid allegiances, every public gesture becomes a message. And when Nigeria's political, business, and traditional elites converge under one roof, it's rarely ever just about a book. The launch of the Chronicles of a Legend, a memoir by the Asama of Benin Kingdom, Chief Gabriel Igbinedion, may have been branded as a celebration of legacy and cultural pride, but within its gilded halls echoed the faint tremors of something far more politically profound. With Peter Obi in attendance, seated among Nigeria's influential elite, the event transformed into a theater of subtle political choreography. Each handshake, nod, and applause laced with implications for Nigeria's 2027 election narrative. In a nation where silence often screams louder than rhetoric, this gathering was more than ceremonial. It was coded political messaging cloaked in cultural celebration. The stakes could not be higher. With the ruling party navigating post-election turbulence and internal unrest, and the opposition, particularly the Labour Party, struggling to consolidate public sentiment after a controversial election cycle, Peter Obi's presence at the event stirred curiosity. The Asama of Benin, known for wielding substantial traditional influence and long-standing political ties, doesn't offer neutral platforms. For decades, he has served as a political bellwether, lending symbolic weight to events that others mistake for mere festivity. His book presentation, therefore, wasn't just about chronicling the life of a man. It was about staging a recalibration of political alliances. For the average Nigerian viewer, the optics were everything. Obi, the former Anambra State governor and 2023 Labour Party presidential candidate, has cultivated a populist brand rooted in humility, technocracy, and economic reform. Yet here he was, basking in the aristocratic ambience of Benin royalty, a setting typically associated with establishment politics. Could this suggest a deliberate shift in strategy? Is Obi now actively courting the very elite power structures he once stood apart from? These are the questions resonating among the public and political analysts alike, drawing inevitable comparisons to the late MKO Abiola, another populist figure who found himself dancing between grassroots support and elite validation. To understand the gravity of this moment, one must appreciate the legacy of Chief Gabriel Igbinedion. Known as the Asama, meaning son of the people, his influence extends beyond traditional boundaries into the very architecture of Nigeria's political economy. Founder of Igbinedion University, Okade, and a tycoon with interests spanning aviation, media, and education, the Asama has played the role of kingmaker more times than most living Nigerians can count. His political guest list has historically mirrored the shifting power blocks of Nigeria's elite. And so, when he unveiled the Chronicles of a Legend, it was a curated stage where old alliances were reaffirmed and new ones quietly tested. Peter Obi's participation, therefore, should not be interpreted as merely respectful attendance. In a country where appearances are political acts, Obi's presence beside personalities like former President Goodluck Jonathan and other PDP-aligned figures signals an evolving alignment. It's a timely recalibration as internal cracks within the Labour Party begin to surface: leadership disputes, ideological inconsistency, and questions around Obi's long-term strategy. The Labour Party's inability to harness the post-2023 momentum into structured opposition leaves Obi searching for new political oxygen. This event, intentionally or not, may have offered that platform. At the same time, the book itself serves as more than just a literary artifact. Its title, The Chronicles of a Legend, evokes not only the legacy of one man but the larger narrative of enduring influence in Nigerian leadership. Gabriel Igbinedion's life story, spanning military coups, democratic transitions, and economic revolutions, acts as a mirror to Nigeria's own checkered past. By choosing to participate, Obi embeds himself into that broader national story, attempting to reposition his image not just as a modern technocrat, but as a historical figure in the making. It's the type of strategic symbolism that could help bridge the gap between his younger, urban fanbase and the more traditional voting blocs across the South and Middle Belt. Public reactions to Obi's appearance at the book launch have been both celebratory and skeptical. Supporters view the move as a pragmatic evolution, proof that Obi is no longer content being the outsider, shouting into the void of elite politics. We've seen what being right but powerless leads to, one social media commentator noted. Maybe it's time he got into the rooms that really matter. Critics, however, see the shift as an ideological compromise. Isn't this the same establishment Obi criticized? Others asked, pointing to what they perceive as a soft betrayal of the very movement that propelled him to national relevance. This tension reflects a deeper dilemma in Nigerian opposition politics. While Obi remains a beloved figure among millions of Nigerians disillusioned with the current administration, his platform lacks institutional muscle. Unlike the PDP with its decades-long machinery or the APC with federal incumbency, Labour remains a shell held together by personal charisma. For Obi to mount a serious 2027 challenge, he must either build a new machine or inherit an old one. The presence at Igbinedion's book launch may be a prelude to the latter. Comparisons to past opposition leaders like Nnamdi Azikiwe aligning with colonial elites or Abiola attempting to fuse grassroots support with elite networks are increasingly relevant. In each case, the challenge was the same: how to translate popular momentum into institutional legitimacy. Obi's political identity is at a crossroads. Remain to outsider and risk irrelevance, blend too much with the insiders, and lose moral authority. The book event reflects this tightrope walk, a balancing act between accessibility and authenticity. The media's reaction to the Asama's book launch, while celebratory on the surface, reveals deeper layers of political symbolism and narrative control that warrant critical examination. Leading headlines across both legacy and digital platforms framed the event as a cultural and historical milestone, honoring Gabriel Igbinedion not just as a businessman or traditional leader, but as a custodian of Nigeria's entrepreneurial legacy. Yet, buried beneath the praise were editorial tones that subtly questioned the timing and political congregation surrounding the launch. Why was a book on the life of a non-politician generating buzz from top-tier political actors like Peter Obi? And what does this tell us about the subtle but strategic branding efforts underway? In several mainstream and independent media circles, the tone vacillated between awe and curiosity. Commentators highlighted the rare convergence of former political opponents and influential monarchs in one space, with some suggesting that this unity, though styled as a cultural homage, might represent an evolving alliance of power blocks ahead of 2027. Particularly noteworthy was the social media surge following Peter Obi's speech at the event. Clips of his remarks, where he lauded Igbinedion as a beacon of perseverance and resilience, went viral, with supporters drawing parallels between Obi's anti-establishment message and Igbinedion's rise through systemic adversity. The optics of Obi aligning himself with such legacy narratives, however indirectly, are potent. They signal an evolving political strategy aimed at anchoring his reformist agenda within traditional legitimacy, thereby neutralizing elite skepticism. Yet not all media reactions were fawning. A contingent of critics questioned whether this blending of cultural pageantry and political alignment represents the continued hijacking of traditional institutions for partisan gain. Some called out the selective presence of leaders aligned with a particular ideological frame, those who have often branded themselves as reformers or patriotic disruptors. Others expressed skepticism over whether such events truly serve the public good or merely polish the images of political actors while Nigeria reels from inflation, insecurity, and institutional decay. What becomes clear from this media discourse is that the book launch is no longer just a literary celebration. It has become a barometer of political maneuvering, generational symbolism, and elite narrative positioning. Beneath the grandeur of the ceremony and the polished speeches lies a critical policy question. What does this intersection of legacy, cultural honor, and political presence mean for Nigeria's immediate governance challenges? For one, it reaffirms the long-standing tradition where elite gatherings serve as informal policy summit spaces where ideas, influence, and alliances are broken outside formal legislative or executive frameworks. In Gabriel Igbinedion's case, the thematic focus on resilience, self-determination, and indigenous enterprise speaks to broader economic policy conversations, especially amid Nigeria's faltering industrial base and youth unemployment crisis. Peter Obi's speech, while non-policy on the surface, echoed key themes from his 2023 campaign: transparency, youth empowerment, and inclusive economic structures. His careful tribute to Igbinedion's legacy as one that overcame institutional odds to create jobs and opportunity subtly reintroduced his campaign message into public discourse without the baggage of overt electioneering. This has policy implications. By using cultural events as platforms for narrative reinforcement, Obi and like-minded reformists are blurring the line between politics and legacy building, signaling that their vision for Nigeria includes an integration of cultural identity and structural reform. Moreover, the event subtly highlighted a shift in the policy conversation from elite technocracy to community-rooted legacy economics. Rather than focusing on foreign direct investment alone, speeches and tributes emphasized local ingenuity, family businesses, and generational thinking. If translated into policy, this could signal a return to grassroots economic empowerment as a core agenda for future candidates, particularly those emerging from outside traditional party establishments. It also raises the question of whether events like this will begin to influence policymaking through soft diplomacy rather than legislative lobbying. The real-world consequence may be a more symbolic, but no less powerful, shift in how national development priorities are framed in the public square. To fully grasp the implications of Asama's book launch and Peter Obi's presence, we must draw comparisons to past leadership moments within the Democratic Party landscape, particularly the internal dynamics that have fractured, rebranded, or revitalized political movements. Much like how Barack Obama's ascendance in 2008 required the fusion of youthful energy with civil rights legacy figures, or how Joe Biden's 2020 victory leaned on elder statesman endorsements to restore establishment trust, Nigeria's political evolution appears to be treading a similar path, anchoring new visions in legacy credibility. Gabriel Igbinedion, with his long-standing dominance in the South-South region, mirrors the kind of legacy leaders that Democrats in the U.S. have strategically aligned with to bridge generational divides. His symbolic blessing of reformist voices such as Peter Obi may reflect a calculated political realignment, not unlike how Bernie Sanders' endorsement of Biden in 2020, a strategic olive branch, was to unify the progressive and moderate wings of the Democratic Party. Similarly, Obi's careful engagement with traditional monarchs and legacy businessmen signals an intent to avoid the fate of isolated populists, those whose grassroots power was unmatched by elite infrastructure. He appears to be building the very coalition that can navigate Nigeria's political complexities, a mix of tradition, innovation, and reform. Furthermore, the current moment echoes the 2016 Democratic primary fallout, where the failure to reconcile progressive insurgency with party orthodoxy led to widespread voter disillusionment. Nigeria's current opposition faces a similar risk. If figures like Obi are not integrated into larger frameworks that command respect from institutional actors like the Asama, the party may once again fracture into regional and ideological silos, doomed to repeat the mistakes of fragmented opposition in 2019 and 2023. Thus, the Igbinedion event, though celebratory on the surface, must be read as a pivotal move in a broader realignment strategy to avoid internal collapse, to present a united front, and to reframe public debates around legacy, progress, and national identity. The public's reaction to the book presentation, especially in digital spaces, reveals a nation torn between nostalgia and a desperate craving for transformation. On the one hand, the reverence for Gabriel Igbinedion's achievements stirred deep pride, particularly among those who see in him a rare success story unmarred by scandal, sustained over decades of political turbulence. Comment sections across YouTube, Twitter X, and Facebook brimmed with admiration. A true legend, many wrote. Others viewed the ceremony as a reminder of Nigeria's lost era of entrepreneurial greatness, an age where private initiative was not only possible but respected, even in the absence of strong state support. For a younger audience starving of such role models, Igbinedion's story offered both a blueprint and a bitter contrast to their lived reality. Yet beneath the praise, a more urgent tone simmered. Many viewers were quick to shift the conversation toward the glaring dysfunctions of the present. "We are celebrating legacies while the youth have no future," one viral comment read. Others questioned whether these political figures were merely riding on the back of Igbinedion's dignity to launder their relevance. Peter Obi's presence received the most polarized attention, hailed by supporters as the only politician who deserves to speak at such an event, while critics asked, where was this energy when policy decisions were needed last year? The very fact that a book launch could spark such fevered debate speaks volumes about the vacuum in Nigeria's political discourse, one where symbolism now carries more weight than legislation, and where public yearning for clarity and direction remains unmet. But herein lies the hidden power of such events. They act as mirrors, forcing citizens to confront what kind of leadership they want, and what values they will demand from those who seek to govern. The ceremony wasn't just a tribute. It was a referendum on relevance. It showed us that Nigerians still hunger for leaders who are builders, not just talkers. For stories that uplift, not just entertain. For politics that speaks to the soul, not just the ballot. If the next generation of political actors truly seeks to earn the people's mandate, they must move beyond photo ops and ceremonial speeches. They must articulate, with urgency, how they plan to rescue a nation drowning in contradictions, rich in legacy, poor in progress. So to our viewers, what kind of legacy do you want to build or live under? Are today's leaders measuring up to your expectations, or merely borrowing shine from yesterday's icons? Drop your thoughts into the comments. Engage in the debate that shapes tomorrow. This isn't just about a book. It's about the future being written in real time by voices like yours. Don't just watch, you speak up. Don't just applaud and hold accountable. Nigeria needs citizens who see through the glitter and demand substance. Like, share, subscribe, and most of all, stay awake.